Wherefore, Part 26. It is less a case of the elephant in the room, more an issue of a mammoth in the high street. 11:15 on a Saturday morning, and the streets are full of people who have been lured out of the hills by the farmers' market. Stroud is heavy on tweed right now, plus middle-class bohemia and good cheer. Look a little closer, and you'll see the paupers in the mix, the workers, the homeless, the hungover, the hung out to dry, the lost, the damned. They're all here. Elephants in the room, and not part of the story much of Stroud likes to tell itself. The mammoth clearly isn't occupying quite the same reality as either the high street or the humans in it, but it does a decent approximation of walking down the pedestrianised bit of road, only occasionally going through street furniture and people. The many dogs, who it is obligatory to bring into town for the market, can all see the mammoth and get out of its way, or bark, or try to sniff it. A current of dog mayhem runs down the hill, and this is all some people see of the event. Most of the children see it, but the older ones are careful not to let on. Most of the poets see it, and afterwards people who thought they were poets but who did not see the mammoth will have a lingering feeling that they cannot explain, that they really aren't poets at all. The people who are off their tits on substances, prescribed and otherwise, see the mammoth, along with whatever else they happen to be seeing today. Tasha, Amy and Clarissa are at the little junction where the Shambles Market meets the High Street. This is a chance encounter. All three of them see the mammoth. Amy's knees buckle under her, and the other two catch her before she falls. They cling on to each other as the mammoth passes through, and after it is out of sight, they pull closer together, holding on to each other and saying nothing. This is auroch business, and in matters like these, words do not count for much. None of them knows what the mammoth means, except that it belongs to their world. It is part of the lost past, of the strange magic that has overtaken their lives. They hold each other tightly, breathe together, and wonder at it all. Tasha kisses Amy and Clarissa in turn, soft kisses to the lips, affirming the bonds between them. She does not care who sees or what they think. A mammoth has just walked down the high street in broad daylight, and she needs to kiss her people. She wishes the others were here too, to share in both the experience and the kissing. Neris is sat at a table outside Woodruff's when the mammoth goes by. She is glad to be sitting down, suspicious that she might otherwise have fallen in shock, not just because of the mammoth, which is startling enough, but because of the implications. She is not alone. The uncanny events of her life are not part of some private madness. Watching people up and down the high street, she can see that some of them also know about the mammoth and others do not. Some people see and are clearly surprised, others less so. She observes the trio of were-aurochs kissing each other and crying, and knows they know something. She is not alone with her beaver business. This knowledge moves her deeply, eases a sense of isolation she had not previously realised was there. She sees Wambleforth stop outside the bookshop and almost waves. Doesn't, because Wambleforth is doing something. There are small hand gestures and mouth shapes. Yet another odd thing going on. Wambleforth then goes into the bookshop, and a few moments later a man stands in the same spot and goes through a similar series of subtle gestures. He leaves. Wambleforth emerges, and the whole thing repeats, except by the end of this round, Wambleforth looks reasonably cheered. At this point, Neris risks a little wave, and the wizard notices her and comes over. "How are things?" Wambleforth asks. "Did you see the mammoth?" Neris says, shaking her head. Saying it out loud feels so very odd. "Yes," says Wambleforth. "That's never happened before." "What does it mean?" Neris asks. She is one of the few people left in this story who still believes in the idea of meaning, but don't hold it against her. She has enough to contend with already and does not need existentialism on top of that. "Well," Wambleforth begins, a desire for meaning chafing against the suspicion that life is mostly chaos. "Well, something's definitely going on. There is an arm movement, all embracing but fairly ambiguous. Giants all over the place, the were-rhubarb. Wambleforth shrugs. The were-what? Nerys is dazed. Were-rhubarb. People who turn into rhubarb at the full moon, which is... Never mind. Nerys's face feels out of her control. Her mouth is open, eyes wide as though trying to absorb data that is too big for the available entrance points. Oh my God, my mother, she says. Wambleforth sips hot chocolate. Quite where this has come from is a mystery. There's a lot of it about, but it seems harmless. My mother, Nerys says again. My mother turns into rhubarb. This explains everything. Particularly the occasions of mud in the kitchen and the state of the back garden. Will she try and bite me? Can rhubarb bite? How does this even work? No one is sure, Wambleforth says, but not biting, I think. Wow. Nerys plays with her empty teacup and tries to rejig her reality to encompass this latest development. It's been a challenging few days. She is now definitely a beaver at night, not a woman having strange dreams of failing at being a beaver. Her body is coping a lot better with this new arrangement. She is less tired. Also, her lodge is coming along well. There is reliably a heron on her pond, and she's had visits from a few wading birds. It is at this point that the bear comes down the high street. As the bear is walking on its hind legs, a lot of people assume it is a person in a bear costume. Some new show from Gifford Circus, perhaps. Performance art is always worth a thought, and is the town's favourite way of explaining all kinds of problematic things, up to and including performance art. The dogs will go mad again because the bear smells like a bear, and this is an incredibly exciting experience for the bored and shampooed pooches of Stroud. The children see it, except for those who've already buried their faces in the clothing of their responsible but oblivious adults. All of the remaining poets in the high street are looking the wrong way. There is no mystery here. They are all staring forlornly into their coffee cups in the aftermath of the mammoth. The people who are off their tits quietly commend the quality of the substances they have imbibed. This is some good shit, and it seems unlikely that any future shit will ever live up to this standard. Some of them become maudlin about this and have a little cry. The bear saunters up to the table outside Woodruff's and plonks its bum on the ground next to the table where Nerys and Wambleforth are sitting. Nerys finds she can hardly breathe, but some remnant of her rational self is sure she should be safe in the company of a wizard, while some other remnant of rational self keeps shouting, "A bear! A wizard!" alternately, and with about equal levels of concern. "So, what about that mammoth, eh?" says the bear. "Tell me about it," says Wambleforth, clearly speaking rhetorically. "Well, I'm only speculating here, but if it is migrating south, that could mean the ice sheet is expanding." "That would be complicated," says Wambleforth. "Do you think the ice is moving through time or memory, or is this new ice?" "How the fuck should I know?" says the bear. "I'm just a bear." "No, you're not," says Wambleforth. "I saw you take your bear skin off, remember?" "I was so bear," the bear says. "Your face was a picture." Wambleforth sighs and looks slightly embarrassed. "Nerys here is a beaver, but on somewhat different terms, I think." "Nice to meet you," says the bear. "I mostly like to shit in the woods. How about you?" Nerys has no idea what to say, so makes some noises and prays silently for rescue, and starts to wish the mammoth would come back, because in the rosy glow of nostalgic hindsight, the mammoth seems pretty uncomplicated. "Well, got to love you and leave you," says the bear, "but my advice is not to take up dancing lessons this week. All the signs are dead against it." "My mother would love you," Nerys says. "Darling," the bear replies, "we've barely been introduced. I'm not ready to meet your mother just yet." Nerys wonders if it is possible to blush yourself to death. She thinks it could be, and just wilts face down onto the table and waits for the end. The bear leaves, laughing. "If it's any help, she has much the same effect on me," says Wambleforth. As Nerys continues to die upon the table, a less than perfectly rational part of herself is cackling on the inside, because the terrifying bear person is a female terrifying bear person who she may have accidentally just propositioned. Market days, says Wambleforth. Always something mad going on.